Oh, I'll be dressed up, you'll be drinking cocktails, tune into my show. It's on YouTube Tuesday live at 8.
Hello, you've reached the Book 2 Retrospective. This is a space for me to look back on the last 10 episodes, chapters, and reflect on what things worked well, what things didn't work well. For Book 1, I did a longer retrospective with my partner Michael. This time, I decided to do a quicker, hour-long retrospective with a couple of my friends. And I did that before episode 20 last week, and it was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot. So thank you to Andrew, John, Emily, Allie, Trent, and Michael yet again. I really appreciate the time. And it was super fun getting that energy right before chapter 20. The rest of this video is going to be a couple of different reflective questions and some generic answers from me as I look back. Some questions from that actual retrospective that I got from my friends. And then finally, some questions to look forward to Book 3, which will hopefully be happening in the winter of 2022. I hope you enjoy if you're watching this. And most importantly, I hope that I find this useful when I look back at this. When I am guessing 80 or the next time I do a retrospective. Okay, bye-bye.
Please join the chat, please join the chat. Meow, 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 meow.
As far as favorites go, for the story, the two that pop out are Mocha Dick and Orpheus and Eurydice. Both of them required a lot of manipulation with original texts, which I keep finding myself like really drawn towards and really, really enjoying. The more I have to kind of combine something that exists to make something new, the more fun it is. But if I had to pick between those two, I'd say Orpheus and Eurydice, because I thought it was just like two really beautiful source texts that I was really proud to be able to push together. For a character, I would definitely say Pinocchio. I had a lot of fun working on the voice. That's not even good. Like, I had to practice for like a day and a half, and it was very Mickey Mouse-ish, but boy, I, I really enjoyed doing that. Um, the beverage book cover, that's a challenge. I would say that I was really generally quite proud of the beverage books. I feel like I leveled them up a lot this this season. Um, I feel like it's got to be the devil one, very self-referential. But I do think that the one for the hermit, the platypus one, actually looks like an actual human artist drew that, and so I felt pretty proud of that one. Cocktail would have been the Canalazzo with the aguardiente in it. That was just like a good warm drink, very sweet, but very good. And for mocktail, definitely the Figaro from the Hanged Man episode with Pinocchio. That one's delicious, and it was really beautiful as well. And then costume, I loved my look for Mocha Dick. I don't know why. And maybe the hair color and I loved the V with the beads that I did. And then there was also Pinocchio, which was so hard and like was caked on, but I was generally pretty proud of how that looked in the long run. And then vocab word, uh, I don't remember. I enjoyed learning the vocab words associated with all the puppetry for Pinocchio, but I also just had like a lot of fun learning about the Nephilim in the Devil episode and everything that kind of went into that. Yeah.
It's on YouTube Tuesday live at 8. I draw a card, then a fairy tale I recreate.
The most challenging aspect of this book. Yeah, relatively easy. So definitely had declining viewership this entire season. Which was challenging to deal with because in the first season, first book, I definitely feel like my viewership was increasing, and I kind of expected to come back and for things to increase. And that didn't happen, and I think there's a number of reasons why that didn't happen. I think it's a lot to ask audience members to sit through. 30 minutes is long form. I think that people were vaccinated and ready to get out and do other things. So, who can blame them? Um, and yeah, but I really thought that if I marketed it appropriately and I put more effort into marketing, I would be able to grow it. And in fact, the opposite happened. The more effort I put into it, the more money I spent on like Instagram ads, really the less people that came. And I remember for the Devil episode, I was the most excited about that episode. I scheduled it so it happened the week of Halloween. I was paying for promotion on it. I got a lot of engagement on my personal Instagram around this like whole banana thing, which is why I focused in on it. And then for the actual episode, I really thought I like went in with expectations of viewership being higher. And so I spent this money on like these thick contacts. I was so excited about this story surrounding like the devil and like stealing from the Bible, apocrypha texts, and trying to make this work. And while I was doing the episode, I looked over and I saw the viewership drop from 1 to 0 because Michael had to deal with the cats. And a lot of people told me they watched that episode, so I don't know if maybe it was calculating it wrong, but I remember there's like a moment in the middle of that episode when I realized that nobody was watching. And I had like blood dripping down my face. I was holding God, I think, if I remember correctly. And these contacts were quite painful. And I just had like this existential moment of like, what the fuck are you doing here? And what is the point of doing this? And it was really sad. I was really bummed out after that. And especially because I had tried so hard and it didn't work out. And luckily the next week was a really chill week and I felt very good about it. And I think that it really empowered me to play around a little bit more. Obviously, like I'd really love for people to be here, but I don't want people to feel obligated to watch the show. And so I don't know. Most of this season, I've really been wrestling with that and like what I'm doing here, what the purpose of it is. And so that's been really probably the most challenging aspect of this book so far.
Tale I'll recreate, follow online for some mocktails that will titillate. Please join the chat.
I would say that the thing that I've learned the most about myself over this book is that I still want to do it. I still want to do it. I want to finish it, even if people don't come, even if viewership declines. I wish people wanted to come. I would love to be doing this. I think it would be more fun for everyone involved if there was a large audience. I feel like it would be easier to iterate on. But even if there's an audience of 0, I know that this is the kind of air date is very motivating. And I still really enjoy what I'm doing and how I'm learning and the fact that I'm growing. And even if no one shows up, I'm going to keep doing it, which feels exhausting and doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I'm just trying to lean in and listen to that,
Meow, 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 meow. Tune into my show. It's on YouTube.
The story of this season. This is actually a really fantastic question that Stephen asked for book 1. And I tried to spend a little bit more time thinking about it. A lot of wands, and a lot of major apocrypha. We had the devil, the hangman, the hermit, the star, all in one season. And each of those episodes I really loved. I felt like they had the import and the impact of the meaning that their cards represented. I felt like the 6 of Swords coming in 6th place right when I was kind of having a crisis about this whole thing was really apt. And yeah, I always think about that book 10, the Page of Wands, kind of measuring themselves up against the wand. And the fact that we started and ended with a wand, I think is really representative of kind of the reflection and the introspection that this series prompted. So.
Through the light, meow, 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 meow. Tune into my show.
these are all questions from the actual group retro, everything in pink moving forward. So questions that my friends said, hey, I might be interested to hear you talk about. But this first one is from me, kind of just reflecting on the things that I learned from the group retrospective. And there were some surprising bits. First and foremost was not to cut the chat. I was thinking it would be helpful to cut the chat because I've had lower viewership and it feels kind of sad, but everyone was telling me that the most helpful thing is if they tune in live is some more engagement with the chat. And so I think that's something that I need to play around a little bit more with in the second season. Also, that breaking up the story with vocab, maybe not trying to push as hard, would be helpful. That sometimes I feel compelled to like always have 3 vocab words, but that's not really necessary. And I played around in the second half of this book around, front loading vocab words, and that was pretty effective. It was the feedback that I'd heard. So maybe a little bit more of that. Education being kind of like the biggest impact here. And then I also listed a number of different things that I was thinking about, and kind of overwhelmingly, folks were most excited about the idea of me doing a live show, which, fingers crossed, hopefully will come in 2022 in the summer.
Meow 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 meow. True delight. Meow 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 meow.
Fantastic question, and one that I only have a cheat answer for, which is that I like the content I'm creating. I really enjoy making it. I like tying these together. I feel like I'm learning a lot. I feel very inspired by the work that I'm doing and very driven. I think that the audience aspect, the live nature of it, is primarily motivational and enforces some like kill your darling mentality. If I was trying to like pre-record all of these, I don't think I would ever get anything done because I would just nitpick it to death. But I also am really intrigued by the audience experience aspect of this. I don't know right now of anyone trying to do something similar. And I think that's part of the challenge that I've been finding, and why I've been considering switching over to Twitch. Because I'd like to grow an audience. I think that this is something that could be fun, and that we could like learn a little bit more collectively together. I like the idea of the intimacy in an online space. I like the idea of some kind of longer form storytelling and entertainment that feels more intimate, as facilitated through a chat. So unfortunately, my answer is both, which is my continual issue.
Meow meow meow. True delight. Meow 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 meow. Tune into my show.
I don't know. This is something that I'm really trying to reflect on. I'm really proud of myself for doing this work, and I find it really challenging. I think that one of the things I'm trying to cultivate is an idea of an artistic vision. Right now, it's the project. It's completing the project, and I think I've referred to this in conversation with my friends as like a spell to reawaken my creativity and my spiritual side. And I feel like that has succeeded. And I'm really excited to see where I end up when I'm done with this, what kind of things have come forward. So I think this project in and of itself is kind of an exploration of my artistic vision. And so as a result, I think I can probably play around with it a little bit more and trying to experiment more and see how I feel. But what's driving me is the desire to learn and to cultivate a sense of inspiration for myself, and to be vulnerable in putting that out into the world. In hopes that it continues to inspire me, that I can have like a background, a portfolio of work that I can dip into, so that when the next thing comes along artistically that is inspiring to me, I've already cultivated that voice. I know how to lean into it. Hopefully I'm learning a lot about tarot. I'm learning about why human beings are drawn to things like folk tales, like fairy tales, and kind of the connectivity that those stories create. I feel like that it's kind of like a time machine, allows us to go forward and backwards in history in terms of these desires of connection, as does this idea of like creating meaning surrounding a card game. And I like playing with that in terms of the connection of the live show. What is it I want to say? Challenge, explore, model. What do I want to say? I mean, I think I wanted to say to myself that I'm allowed to do this and that it is okay to put yourself out there. I think I also want to create space to explore spirituality in a way that is not necessarily believing in it. Because I don't really believe in the tarot. Like, I don't believe in truth telling, but I really do believe in our capacity as humans, and I'm really interested in our capacity of humans to create meaning and what that means, and the symbolism inherent in all of that, and how that shows up in the through line, and just kind of exploring that. What do I want to challenge? Myself, primarily. I would also somehow, like, if I could figure it out, I'd love to challenge audiences to stay engaged. I'd love to challenge myself to figure out how to get audiences to show up and stay engaged. I'm looking to, and I think that this kind of medium could grow. I could see it in VR really effectively. I could see it in a live form. But I do think that while a lot of theatrical people saw the pandemic as a negative, and it certainly is for live performance in a lot of different ways, I really see it as an opportunity. And I think that there are a plethora of ways that we can connect with one another over the internet in inspirational and intimate ways that we haven't figured out yet. And I'm really kind of exploring it, dipping my toe in the water with this first project. But I really believe that will continue to grow. And if I have my druthers, I'd love to be on the forefront of that. Not getting rid of live theater, but finding a way to bridge the gap between that. Because technology still feels cold, and I don't believe that will always be the case. And the ability for access and scalability, I think, is really interesting to tap into. I hope I answered all those questions. This is a big question. Still thinking about it.
Meow 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 copyright meow 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 meow.
I would hire Amanda to make some excellent props. I would have a stylist put together an incredible costume. One episode, I would probably pick a Major Arcana card, probably one of my favorites, maybe the Devil episode, and I would probably get some historians in to maybe do some kind of, like, they would do the vocab at the beginning, we'd like get drunk together, I'd ask them questions, we'd kind of talk about the context of everything, and then we'd like set all of the educational materials up at the beginning, and there would be a whole crew to like film everything. And then, yeah, stylist, costume, really big works. And I feel like I would maybe be a narrator, kind of like I am in the actual show. And I really like the idea of just like massive props. Like, it's still kind of like the little figurines, but they're coming down from the stage, and maybe they're still moving somehow. And probably voiced by other actors. Maybe only occasionally, magically, will one of them be maybe another human or something. But like huge stuff, and not digitized at all. None of this is digitized. All of it is like props, models, and whatnot. I've only got one episode. Maybe it's filmed in front of a live audience. Like, what I'd really like to do for like a stage show is like, it's actually drawn. Like, all of the cards exist in the deck. One of them is drawn, and everything is prepared and ready to go. 1 out of 78. We have to give the context, the history, and then jump into a story and a performance, all wrapped around a theme. So I'd love to build a community of like makers that could make that happen live. But if I'm premeditating this show, then I think that's what this looks like.
Meow 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 copyright meow 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 meow.
If I'm restricting myself to just this last book, I think it would be really fun to do an original Pinocchio with like massive marionettes, and like the main character is maybe the only human and everything else is being controlled. I know the opposite has been done, but that would be fun for, I think, a staged show. For a If I'm including the first season, I think Ileana Simziana would be really compelling, probably as a TV show. I think the kind of gender bending nature is actually quite modern, and I think it would be really interesting for that to be highlighted a little bit more. But I mean, I really love the niche and unique fairy tales. Um, I would really like to go back to Orpheus and Eurydice and the Greek myths maybe after this project, and do a deep dive on the muses, because I just don't think there's enough content on each and every single one of them. And I prayed to them right before I did that episode, and I'm feeling them pull me.
Meow 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 late at night meow 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 meow.
All right, wrapping things up. So all of the blue ones are kind of looking forward. I mean, the biggest thing was drawing all of the cards ahead of time. It helped immensely with my anxiety, my ability to prepare. I'm so glad that I did the first book drawing the cards randomly. That was very fun. It was, and I had the bandwidth to do that. Picking them out so that I could plan everything was incredibly helpful. So that was a huge change. And I really felt like I was sacrificing something huge by doing that. But all in all, 10 out of 10. I don't know that I changed anything that was worse other than doing this show in an age of vaccines, So if everyone was still crouched at home, maybe I would have had more viewership going on.
I draw a card, then a fairy tale I recreate, follow one line for some.
This is tricky. There's so much that goes into every episode, from the beverage book, the cocktail creation, the characters, the vocab words. I may cut more of the vocab or try and front load more of that, because that does take quite a lot of work, and I find that happening last minute. Same with the characters. Creating those characters is really challenging, but I do think it is helpful to have something to look at, and I love looking at my box of all the little characters in it. I'm going to try and plan out more of the stories this time. I've really thought about the idea of maybe just focusing on like one liquor and a couple of mixers for the cocktail, because then it would make it maybe a little bit easier for the audience to just say, okay, I'm not going to have to go out and buy something every week. Maybe I could even get all the recipes done ahead of time. Maybe that would make people more interested. I don't think to date anyone has made a single cocktail for any of the shows, so maybe making it a little bit easier. It would also make it easier for me, honestly, one less thing to worry about. I also think that it would be helpful for me if I did, ideally, if I can get all of the stories done with characters and cocktails prepared prior to starting the season, I would be in a really good place. So the more planning that I can do, the better it will be for me. I also found it really so fun. The final episode, chapter 10, happened right before, chapter 20 happened. My retrospective happened right before it, and like meeting everyone, the energy of like just talking to other human beings right before I performed was just electrifying. I found that really helpful. So I may try and play around with having something to do right beforehand, because I missed that.
Please join the chat. Please join the chat. Meow 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 meow.
The Dream is a live show. The Dream is a live show with 78 cards, and there's an audience, and I ask somebody to come up for a reading. We draw a set number of cards. There's a cast and crew ready to go, And in the course of an hour and a half or so, we put on a completely customized performance based on a conversation with one person at the beginning, combining all of the elements that I've had so far. That's the dream.
Follow one line for some mocktails that will titillate. Please join the chat. Please join the chat.
So, from a card standpoint, I think it's really cool that we're starting and ending with a 3. We got the 3 of Wands upright. We're ending with the 3 of Cups reversed. So I feel like that's a really nice bookend. Book 2 started and ended with Wands. Same thing. Well, actually, I think they were both reversed. So really liked that. We've got some major Apocrypha cards that I just didn't even know existed when I drew them. Triple Knight energy, is that right? Yeah, strong Knight energy. Excited to explore that. The 5 of Pentacles is like a gutting card, and so I'm excited to learn more about that. And then the 8 of Wands hitting in the 8th place is just so simplistic and so fun. So I'm really excited to learn more about that card as well. From a logistics standpoint, I really hope that I can find ways to make myself feel comfortable, to experiment more, and to express more vulnerability. I've definitely felt like I was more confident in this season, and that was great. And I really hope that, I can play around with more of these things and not be worried about how that will affect something like viewership. So hopefully weirder stuff to come.
Follow one line for some mocktails that will titillate. Please join the chat. Please join the chat. Meow 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 meow. Copyright. Meow 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 meow. Late at night. Meow 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 meow. True delight. Meow 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 meow.